Getting into the Warhammer hobby can seem overwhelming. I would know since I myself just painted my first models 5 months ago, and life as we know it fundamentally changed. Now I have a small army of small green plastic men yelling that they want more of something called DACA, and I don't know how to give it to them. As someone new to the hobby, I figured maybe I could share what I wish I would have known back when I first decided to jump in. These are just my opinions based on my experiences thus far, so feel free to drop in the comments and let me know what you wish you would have known too. So starting off, number 5, what's my goal? So I didn't really have a plan for this. I walked into a local store and said, hey, I'm thinking of getting into Warhammer, but I'm not sure how. That may have been a mistake. I hadn't thought about if I was getting into this just to create and paint, or if I wanted to play the game as well. Realistically, it's only been maybe a month or so since I started looking into having an army to actually play the tabletop game with, and I realized what I have now doesn't really work all that well as a functional army. If you're thinking about starting Warhammer, now is a chance to think about this for yourself. Are you actually looking to play the tabletop war game? Or are you just wanting to assemble and paint some cool models? If you said probably both of these, then you still probably want to take into account that if what you're buying will work in an actual game setting or not. There's a ton of great info out there on how to build an army for each of the different factions, and I would definitely recommend doing that just so that you can make sure that you don't have, say, a bunch of special units or elite units that you can't use together. Maybe you can only have one of them in your army. If you're just looking to paint, however, then that's as simple as just picking out whatever you think looks the coolest, and that can be Warhammer, Dungeons and Dragons, or a ton of other different great miniatures out there. Moving on to number 4 is the cost. And yes, if you ask any veteran Warhammer player about the cost of getting into the hobby, almost all of them will tell you that it's expensive. I knew that it was expensive. I just didn't realize how expensive it could get very, very quickly if you aren't careful. Remember how I said I may have made a mistake to ask about Warhammer in the store? Yeah, after asking what faction I was most interested in trying, I quickly became overwhelmed with model choices, tools, primers, paints, so much that I don't even remember. It was a flurry. Before I knew it, the shop employee just had me loaded down with probably $200 or more worth of things in my arms that he said I needed. Now, I ended up downsizing to just the basics. I got a model kit, some glue, and some primer. I said to myself, I'll put these together, I'll prime them, it'll give me an experience of that, and I can just go from there. Obviously, it wasn't long before I went back for the other supplies that I needed. I got some paints and brushes and the other various things that I needed to actually get these models quote-unquote tabletop ready. Since then, it feels like every paycheck I'm buying something for the hobby. Either new paints, shades, models, brushes. There's always something that I find that I either need or just kinda want. So I would definitely plan on spending a decent amount of money, especially when you're just getting started. That introductory cost of getting all the things you need just to get up and running and paint your first models. After that, it just kind of depends on how into the hobby you get and how many models you want, and if you need new colors to accommodate those models. Moving on to number 3 is time investment. So I used to think that gaming was a time-consuming hobby. Yeah, today I spent 4 hours assembling miniatures, and I didn't even finish half of the ones that I wanted to do. Then after that, you've got to prime them, paint them, base them, all these things just to get them ready to play in the game or to display them. Now, depending on how picky you are on your paint and your basing and all the different things that you have to do, a single miniature can take hours to days or maybe even weeks to get finished. Now me, I'm notoriously picky about my paint jobs. Even when I do what I think is good work, I'm still really never 100% happy with it. Overall, I didn't anticipate the amount of time that it would take to do each step. Cutting the models out of the sprues, cleaning up the extra plastic, clearing off all the mold lines, gluing everything together. It takes a lot longer than you really think it will. And after all that, if you decide that you want to play the tabletop game too, you're going to have to also set aside hours or half a day to play a proper game, depending on how many points you play in that game. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing. It can just lead to you having a very big backlog, which is often referred to as a pile of shame in the Warhammer community. And it can be frustrating when you are trying to get an army finished to actually play with, if it's taking you an exorbitant amount of time to get them tabletop ready. I do really enjoy my time assembling and painting. I just really underestimated how long even a single miniature could take to do. Number 2 is don't overwhelm yourself. So it's really easy to take on too much too soon, whether it be buying too many kits when you're first starting out, or maybe even just trying to paint too many models at one time. Now, when I was painting my first kit, it was 15 Orok boys, and I tried to paint them in batches of 5. And I found myself just fumbling them really badly, having a really hard time. I was missing parts of my paint job, I was forgetting to paint pieces altogether. It was just not overall a good time. Now, batch painting, as this is called, is certainly a really great way to get a lot of units done quickly, but as someone who was just starting and just learning how to paint, it really wasn't a smart idea for me to try to do that. And after I learned from that mistake, I started just painting 1 at a time, maybe 2 at a time. If I'm really feeling it, maybe I'll do 3 at a time if it's just basic infantry. Again, I would recommend that you kind of get a feel for things first before you try to do a big batch of units. And with me, I feel it's a good pace to just do 1 or 2 at a time. I'm not in a huge rush to get all my models finished and painted and everything, because I don't even have enough really for an army yet. But that's something that you can kind of figure out for yourself, what works better for you. I would just suggest that you start small, if you need to watch some tutorials, and just have fun with it. And finally, my number 1 thing, don't compare yourself to others. I saved this one for last because this one is really hard. I'm still really struggling with this one myself, and I think that a lot of people do, from the different people I've talked to in the community. When I first painted my Oroks that I got in that first kit, I was really frustrated because I couldn't get mine to look like the box art. Even when I followed the paint scheme that was on the box and I watched the Games Workshop tutorials, I just couldn't get it to look like they got it to look. And then even worse, when I started just browsing around on, Instagram or social media, looking at photos of other people's miniatures and Warhammer models, I just got even more discouraged because everybody else's paint jobs just looked so amazing, and they had so much detail and all these cool effects that I couldn't begin to think of how to pull off. Now, I didn't think of the fact that a lot of these people have been painting for years, maybe even decades, honing this skill. And while tutorials are great, and I've learned so many great things from so many awesome YouTubers online that have really helped me get better at painting, there's no substitute for pure practice. Practice with this is just as important as other forms of art. If you're drawing or painting or animating, whatever it is, everything can really use that practice to just hone that skill in and make you get better and better every time. And I can definitely see the progress that I've made in the last 5 months when I look back at my Instagram and my photos. I just looked the other day through mine, and I really do see that I've come a long way in just a short amount of time. And I think you will too. Keep on painting, have fun, and you'll see that your minis are getting better and better every time you do them. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and a comment below to let me know. I've really come to love painting these miniatures. I'm hoping that I can get to play my first tabletop game soon. I'm still trying to find a good way to merge my love for this hobby that I've come into my YouTube and Twitch, and I've been doing better about that, but I'm hoping that videos like this can really serve to build that bridge. Thank you guys for watching as always, and I will see you on the next video.